am excited to welcome Sarah Atkins to the podcast. Sarah, how are you today on this lovely Friday afternoon?
I'm great, Molly. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. When it's Friday afternoon and the week is wrapping up, it feels good when you've made it through
Absolutely.
and it feels
Absolutely.
productive. It's also fun to end a Friday doing a podcast. So let's dive into it. For those that don't know you, Sarah, and I know there's probably several listeners who do because they're working with you, but can you just give our listeners a little bit of a warm up who you are, what you do, and where you're from?
Sure. Well, I am the owner of Big Shark Marketing. That is a digital marketing and website design agency based out of Orlando, Florida. I have been doing SEO, digital marketing, website design since 1999. So I'm kind of sounding a little old here, but
Just means you
uh,
got great experience.
yeah, yeah, good experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm originally from the Northeast, from Connecticut, and but I've made Orlando my home for many years. So I have been in this space of digital marketing for well over 20 years. I started off as a web designer and kind of grew into the whole digital marketing side of things because we really didn't know what to do at the time.
Hmm.
And so, I've had the ability to evolve and grow this business the way I want to. There are a lot of agencies there that want to do things a certain way. And I've had the ability to work with companies, work for different agencies, and then take that information and grow with my own style and the way I
Hmm.
want to manage our clients.
I love it. How long has Big Shark Marketing been around?
We started in 2006.
Okay.
So quite a few years now, as far as the internet goes. So yeah, we started off with just the SEO side of things and web design, and we grew with paid ads, social media, and
Hmm.
now AI and everything else that's coming out.
I was going to say in this time frame, I'm sure not only from like when you first got into the marketing space, but now from, having Big Shark, the marketing space has evolved so much
Mhm.
in that time. What would you say are some of the biggest areas that you've seen this world change?
I would say definitely the social media side of things, going from the traditional SEO and now this explosion of short form video content that's really come to light over really in the last 5 to 10 years, where we just thought it was just Googling and searching for information. And now we have, people on TikTok and Instagram and, watching reels. And, it surprised me that people are now utilizing that not just as oh, I need to watch something mindlessly. They're actually utilizing it as a search
Yeah.
and getting information that they need, whether it's for their own personal use or for their home or even news and information that's
Hmm.
coming from that source.
Yeah, it is wild how where we go to get our information has changed over time. There's a lot of noise out there.
There is, and
So much
unfortunately,
noise.
too much.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And that's what makes marketing difficult is how do you get your brand to rise to the top of that noise? There's so much competition.
yes, and I think what you have to do as a business owner is look at, where you are now in marketing and where are you missing that
Hmm.
piece? And is it viable? Because not everything is going to be viable for your business. So you really have to look at it and say, where do I focus some effort? Where do I improve? And that's something that a lot of businesses don't realize, that digital marketing is just evolving and it's growing and you have to evolve with it and you have
Yeah.
to change with it. And it can't just be the traditional, this is what we're doing. We've been doing this for the last several years, and because it's not going to keep working that way. And you have to compete because you're going to have a competitor out there that's going to say, you know what, I'm going over here in this direction, and now they're gaining over you because
Yeah.
they have the upper hand of trying something different.
It's probably, I think, it has to be one of the more frustrating things about marketing for business owners. Marketing folks get this; it's the world that they live in. They're constantly
Mm.
seeing the need to evolve and get creative. But for business owners who aren't as marketing, focused or don't have a passion for it, I think that maybe they see what was working, not work anymore, and kind of point fingers, blame game, and not understanding that it's just about we have to evolve with the changing times.
Right. That's right. And I think a lot of times, I mean, they feel like that's not what they should be doing. They're being
Yeah.
told to do things.
Mhm.
I hear this a lot when I have a potential client come to me. They're oftentimes frustrated because they have spent all this time, all this money, and they feel like they're not getting what they're paying for. They
Yeah.
feel like, they told me this and now I'm over here and I don't know if this is the right direction. And what do I do? Or, I opened up, Yahoo, and all of a sudden I'm seeing all this information about AI search, or I'm seeing information about this over here. What am I supposed to be there? What am I doing?
Right.
And so I think that can be very challenging, especially for even smaller businesses who may not have all the means of having a full marketing staff or having a full content writer. They don't know. So they're
Yeah.
relying on people like myself and other agencies should be guiding them on how to do this.
We're going a little off topic here, but I think this is important because and I've had, many great marketing folks on this podcast, and I really only look to bring on folks who, have been tried and true by existing clients of ours or are known, within the industry. Because it is hard to find the right marketing fit for your business. Someone who is going to kind of guide you through and who you do feel confident has your best interests in mind and not just, sending you an invoice every month and you're like, this is going where?
Right. Exactly. A lot. It's actually, unfortunately, because I have been in this industry for such a long time, I've watched that happen where,
Yeah.
you have all these companies or people pop up that claim to be the experts, or, they claim to do this is what you need to have, and not really understand what their client needs, because everybody is different. I mean, even if I were to manage 10 painting companies, for example, those 10 painting companies being in different cities in the United States or Canada or wherever, they're going to be different. They're
Yeah.
not going to have the same exact marketing, so you have to be able to trust the people that you're hiring, whether it's internally, as your employees, or an agency where you're outsourcing this information. You want them to be able to say, this is what we recommend. We know, we understand, this is what we want to do to make your business grow, and not just a cookie cutter, here's this product, pay for this price, and you're just hoping for the best.
Right.
Yeah.
I love when you and I chatted a couple weeks ago and you're talking about like, the ideal kind of client for Big Shark and how you work with people. I mean, you said like you'll be transparent up front about like this is what we do. This is kind of the level requirement spending that we look to do because it's more effective. And if it's not the right fit, you're going to tell somebody it's not the right fit, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's not all about making money. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely, you want your business to grow and sustain and everything. But, I could not consciously tell somebody, do this, knowing that it's not going to work for them. Because
Right.
in the end, I'm putting my reputation at stake. I have people that I'm letting them down, because I want them to succeed. I want
Yep.
them to, be able to grow and get the leads and, whatever they're looking for to grow their business. So in the end, yes, I will be very transparent and say, hey, maybe this isn't the right fit.
Well, I think from a value standpoint, I mean, that's to us is, that's top priority is that you're transparent and kind of authentic work that you do, and you're building relationships. And that's honestly in this environment, when there is so much competition out there and there is so much noise, especially in the marketing space, it's nice to know, when you're being directed to good people who are doing good work. And I know you're doing good work because you're working with there's a handful of Summit members who are now utilizing you, and which is great. So we've got some shared clients, and I'm excited to have you on just to kind of learn a little bit more about obviously the experience that you have, but to talk about a hot topic. We've talked about AI on here before on the podcast, a little bit from a marketing perspective. But what's interesting about this conversation is we're kind of looking at it from the homeowner search perspective and how the search area has changed. So not just applying, looking for landscaper in Philadelphia in Google, but they're going to other search algorithms to find us. And I never really thought about it that way, but I think it's because it's changing.
Right, right. And this is definitely one of those areas in digital marketing that is substantial in terms of a big change. When we started, it was what we call the traditional SEO. SEO, and then it became paid advertising, where paid ads was like, oh my gosh, you need to have this. And then social media came in. Now you have the AI search, and AI has been around actually
Yeah.
for a while. And it's utilized, the word is just everywhere, medical and technical, anywhere it says AI.
Hmm.
But now AI is being utilized more, not only for businesses who are using it to help their business grow online, but the consumer, the end user now is using it, and sometimes they don't even know they're using it. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's built in, and they don't know. There are products out there that people can use, but for example, in Google, if you search in Google, depending on how you're searching at that moment, you might get an AI search result
Yep.
through their product called Gemini. Gemini is also being used in their phones. If you have a Google phone and you're talking
Oh,
into your phone, search results will come through in that AI tool. Same thing with other voice searches, which, if you go to your Apple and you say Siri and you're talking to Siri about asking them a question, asking for whatever, their search results can also now come from ChatGPT.
really? I didn't know that.
And again, and a lot of this is very,
Yeah.
literally Chat GPT, which that phrase in itself, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of because that
Hmm.
became quite popular in the last 5 years. They have evolved now. They have a search function, an actual search engine now that used to be only available to paid clients.
Okay.
Now they have released it as of just this past February. So anybody now can use that tool and they can search instead of going to Google or in addition to Google. And so those components there, and that's how, again, this is that type of service where it's going to keep changing and keep
Yeah.
growing. And one way of doing things now might change a little bit now. 6 months from now, we might be doing something a little bit differently with that. The basis of this is making sure not only do your websites have what they need to be in that realm of
Hmm.
marketing, but also understand how the consumer searches, because that is also going to keep changing and evolving.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even thinking Claude just came out with now, they will now search web pages versus
Yeah,
before that wasn't, it was all kind of just within the, I don't even know what the word is to use. It was all internal. And
right.
now it can crawl the internet and bring in sources. That it begs a good question. I mean, I feel like for so long, companies have optimized their websites or optimized ads for Google, but
Mhm.
now we're having to think about optimizing our content for these AI search platforms. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's shifting the way people are searching. So when you do traditional SEO, when we started doing this way back when I first started and nobody knew what to do, it was you had to, I don't like to use the word manipulate, but you did have to make changes to the back end of the website,
Mm-hmm.
is you had to tell a search bot, a Google bot or a Bing bot or whatever was crawling the site, who you are and what you offer. Basically, and you would do that in keywords. So interior painting company, Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
painters, in Westchester, whatever it is that you're targeting, those keywords, you would have to do stuff in the back end, and you still do.
Yep.
That's still very much necessary. But you would have to then basically educate this tool to understand, and that would allow your site to move up in the search results when people search like that. AI is weirdly enough more of a human-like approach where,
Interesting.
yeah, it's AI, but you're really having to think like a human, and you have to educate them and say, okay, people are now searching, what are the top 5 interior painters in Philadelphia? Or who are the what is the number one rated painting company near Westchester? They're more detailed,
Okay.
and it's a human, and you're having to educate AI to understand what that is. So they're thinking, okay, they're providing me this information, because when people are searching AI, they're not just searching interior painting company. They're
Mm-hmm.
searching best interior painting company near me. What website has the top 5-star ratings in, Westchester? Very specific, or they might search for Q&A. What is the average turnaround time for exterior painting a house near
Mhm.
me or something like that. And all of that information, AI is now trying to find the sources that they feel is going to represent the best results. So your
Interesting.
site now has to speak more intelligently. Whereas before, and it wasn't that it wasn't intelligent, but you were doing more of the metadata and you had, content that spoke of so many times you had to put this word in your web page.
Yeah.
Or, you wrote a blog post that was the minimum 300 words. That's been the standard for eons. And it might be, top 5 painting tips out there. Whereas now you want to write content that's more fulfilling for people, where you say, this is a project that we did. Here's a interior project in Westchester where we went from this color to that color. We updated it from eggshell to,
Mhm.
satin, whatever the details of that
Yeah.
information is where AI is going to get that and say, okay, based on what you're saying, asking, here's
Mhm.
our top results. Here's your answer to your question.
That's really interesting. So it's as opposed to being kind of keyword focused content, it is more like thorough, detail specific content.
Detailed questions and answers. One of the top areas that we're shifting gears for our clients is saying, look, we need to write content that is factual or Q&A data. So, what are typical questions that your customers ask you? And based on that information, if you don't have an FAQ page or a Q&A type of page,
Hmm.
let's write up some content relevant to this that we know people are going to search and get the results. That's kind of the direction now that we're going into. And
Okay.
also, reviews and recommendations are also quite beneficial. AI searching, again, people are really searching for things like, the top rated company, top rated painters near me, 5-star. It's not just, hey, this is a 5-star review. This is, people that they can rely on.
Hmm.
Who can they trust? Tell me, Google or ChatGPT or any, Perplexity, any of these other search functions that are using AI, what you think is the best answer. So your site needs to represent that factual, informational content.
So is it that factual information content that we can say is building trust and authority in your content in the same way that, we've been working for so long to build that trust and authority on Google?
Yes. Well, and that's a very common word that we've used for years, the
Yeah.
trust factor in SEO. You can't just keyword stuff a website or hide content or do what's called the black hat techniques that are, very old school ways of getting ranked that could actually get you in trouble now.
Hmm.
You need to be the authoritative on your business. So, the one thing that I also try to explain it to my clients is your confidence when you go to a prospect, right? So you go to a house or a business that you're going to provide a quote for, roofing, painting, whatever.
Hmm.
And you're going in there as the authoritative. You're the professional, you have the experience, you have the confidence. You kind of have to write your content now that way. I am the authoritative site for your needs. I have the information, I have the knowledge, I can help you. And based on this information, I'm going to now appear on the top of the search results, not only just traditionally, but also with the AI search.
How does all of this help you? I mean, you mentioned like Google's Gemini,
Mhm.
and we all see it now. We put in a question, and it pops up with some. It gets its own answer at the top. It's linking some things, and then below you've got your sponsored posts or and then then where you naturally fall. How are companies landing in that Gemini response?
One of the ways that Gemini is taking the information is the content on your website. So making sure blogs are up to date, as I mentioned, making
Mhm.
sure that it's well written, that it's authoritative, informational content. Technically, your site is functioning correctly because they're still crawling your site just like a traditional search engine. There's actually AI bots now that we can
Oh,
track
geez.
on the back end. Yeah, it's still very new. It's not something where you can just open up Google Analytics and see it. You actually have to manipulate some information to get the
Mhm.
data, although I would expect that to change this year. But you basically have to have well-written the content that's in there. And then also it can pull from other sources, not just your website, but videos. again, thinking about the traditional way, but
Mhm.
making sure you have your videos, content on there that's informational on YouTube, or Reels, any other areas that you're trying to put some videos on there, 30 to seconds to about a minute long videos, that will show you before and afters of your project, testimonials, maybe a walkthrough. Here's a home that we, refinished the kitchen cabinets. We went from this to this, and you kind of walk through with that information. And you're talking as an expert, and you have that information in there. And AI can also pull that as a result into their, information that they're displaying. So you have to think of it traditionally, but expanded, if that.
Yeah, it's almost making me think that, or it's showing how important content is.
Yes.
Like
Content's
there,
been important forever.
yeah. But now even more, is it now, would you say it's even more so,
Oh,
not only
yes.
the quantity of content, but now the quality of the content.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The content has to make sense. It has to not just be written for search engines, which is how we used to approach traditional SEO for a very
Mhm.
long time, which used to be a challenge because sometimes, clients would say, yeah, but I wouldn't talk like that. And you say, I understand. However, we need to mention these words more because that's how you show up in the search results.
Right.
Now you actually do have to speak more intelligent in your content and actually have a conversation in your results. Yeah.
Does that become tricky when you're still trying to utilize keywords?
Yes.
Like, so trying to find that balance between keyword mentions and
Mhm.
speaking a little bit more eloquently.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is definitely, I think, one of our biggest challenges that we're facing right now. The other area is there are companies who will use AI like ChatGPT to generate the content
Yes.
and
Yep.
then just put the content in there. And that's not always a good thing either,
Right.
because, the search engines actually do become intelligent over a course of time. And, Google, for example, can tell if you are blatantly trying to make it obvious that you're using AI. So, I mean, AI is good. It's a
Hmm.
starting point. Absolutely. Totally recommend utilizing it as a starting point. But I would never say throw it in there and make it, put it on your website. You
Yeah.
definitely need to edit it, and make it sound more from your perspective, your
Mm.
business. I mean, it's
What
good,
do you
definitely writes well, but definitely not 100%.
Yeah, you can tell when something has been completely written by AI and
Oh
just
yeah.
like plug and play. It's pretty obvious. I mean, people use it. I agree with you though. It's a great starting point
Mhm.
to then really allow you to make it your own. What do you think about the technique of, or have you ever seen people just, take current content, current maybe blogs or content pages from their website, plug that into an AI and say, "Can you help me make this more AI search friendly?"
Yes, that's actually a very good idea. A very good idea, actually. By taking that copy and putting it into ChatGPT, it will, or any other tool for, I'm not just saying ChatGPT, but
Hmm.
yeah, you can absolutely get some positive feedback. Things you may not have thought of, you can say, oh, okay, I didn't think about wording it this way, or maybe I can
Yeah.
arrange some things, or because you can ask also, can I expand this content to include additional phrases, for example, like if the copy
Mm.
is talking about maybe the top 5 painting tips, maybe you say, what are the top trends in my market, in the Philadelphia area, for example. And
Mhm.
it may sit there and give you that information, and you can take it and go, I agree, I don't agree, let's edit
Yeah.
this, but it definitely is a good jumping off point.
For folks kind of thinking about, strategy going forward and how, and even from a sense of, their budget, like how they are looking at their spend, do they take these things into consideration when they're thinking about what they're spending on Google AdWords? And I guess do we have to think about AI within our budget? I guess is my question.
Yes, I think you can. Actually, funny with AI, because you can utilize AI for Google Ads. And Google Ads has a whole entire what they call AI intelligence built in now. And so, they will give you suggestions They'll say, hey, we suggest this budget, or they may say additional keywords that you may not have thought of, or ad copy changes. They can generate some ideas there as well. I would suggest not utilizing it verbatim. If they
Yeah.
say, hey, you need to go from this budget to this budget, take that with a grain of salt.
Mhm.
You have the budget to do
Yeah.
that, number one, or number two, is it really going to be that effective for you? But yes, I mean AI search really can be utilized not just for showing up in the search engines. It can be utilized to help you with social media. If you need to write a Facebook post and you really don't know where to start, or you need some ideas, it can help generate that information for you. You can even AI generate images if so choose to, so they can give you that information to utilize on those areas. You can use it, for suggestions on ad copy. It can be utilized as I don't want to say in-house market team, but if you don't have the means for a content writer, for example,
Hmm.
this is a very good tool to help you. So if you need to build your social media and you don't have a budget right now to hire somebody for that, you can use AI as that helping point
Yeah.
where you can say, okay, I really need to write a post. I've been told to write a post for Facebook. What do I do?
Yeah.
So they can give you that as a tool to help generate that content for your
The
social.
thing I've learned so much through conversations like this and just kind of doing my own work. I mean, you can get great content from AI sources.
Mhm.
The more you feed it, the more you give to it, so that it knows kind of what you're looking for, or how to speak to your brand guidelines. The better refined your content is going to be. It's
Right.
not, don't just like plug and play with a question. Help me create a social media post on this
Mhm.
topic. It's maybe here is our Instagram page. Here's our website. This is our mission statement. This,
Yes.
feed it so that it can provide to you a curated response.
Right, absolutely. That by far to me is one of the best features with AI right now, is that it can be used as a
Hmm.
marketing tool. And it'll be interesting to see how it continues to grow,
Yeah.
and how it's going to be used. I know one area that's starting to really show is niche marketing. Niche marketing in this particular industry, where people are saying, okay, it's not just interior painting near me or interior painters in this market. It might be content that's interior painting for historic homes. If you're in an area and people are actually searching
For
that,
that.
and so now you've hit a niche market. So it's not
Okay.
just the people going, I'm looking for an interior painter. It's, I need somebody who understands, the historic homes and what takes place, what you have, if there's certain paint colors you're allowed to use, or if you're dealing with lead paint, or if you're dealing with, just traditional colors that you might have to utilize.
HOA guidelines.
HOA guidelines. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And that can be quite extensive.
Yes.
Or you can do, if you want to be an authoritative on rental properties, hey, you want to hire us? We're a painter for, rental properties, because people will search that way. And so there's now this trend where people are coming up with more of a niche type of marketing. It's not just boilerplate, exterior, interior, it's actual additional types of marketing, which I know is not, hey, you're going to get a ton of business on that stuff, but it is something that's unique. It's unique to your business. Not everybody's probably doing this in your market. And it's also more authoritative content, which then shows up in the search results,
Right.
show up in AI, and you can use AI to come up with that material.
I mean, it just shows all of like the little strings that you got to pull to, like, when you think about the bigger picture.
Yes.
I mean, everything is working together. I had a question. You mentioned the AI image, AI can create images for you.
Mhm.
How does Google respond to AI generated images? Is there any like consequence for that, or like, points reducted that towards your brand authority?
Not right now. They will say that it's AI generated, but no, at this point, they're not penalizing. They're not doing anything that would cause any issues with that.
Okay.
I would expect that to change. Again, this marketing is so new, really, to us, this part of AI, that I would expect this to shift. There might be a time where, and this has happened before in traditional SEO, where you do things a certain way, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, no, 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 that's bad. Don't do it. This
Yeah.
this is
Pivot
not going to
quickly.
work. Yeah, so it's going to keep changing, but so far, no, there's no penalizations for that. No.
I mean, because it is all changing so fast, how do you and your team stay as up to date as possible on all of this? I mean, it's not just you, you've got people that you work with, and then they're working with, your clients. How are you guys trying to kind of stay ahead, not even ahead of the curve, but keeping up with the curve?
It's definitely challenging. We have to do a lot of reading, and again, this is a lot like when we first started. So, and I kind of go back again to way back in the early days of this evolution of marketing, where we kind of were all together going, what do we do? Is this right? Is this wrong? I
Mm-hmm.
heard you do this. Okay. And then you kind of test things out, and also continuing with AI, we have a whole group of people in this field, professionals, who write up their own versions and say, this is what we, have seen in the trends. This is what we're looking at. We take that information and we adapt to it. We learn, we look at it and go, do I agree with this? Do I not agree with this? Because not everything is black and white. It's not
Yeah.
that simple. It can be a challenge, you have to create your own perspectives on things. You have to test. So, we can test things and try out different options and see if it works. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of, trial and error. Analytics data gives us a lot of perspective. Being able to use those type of tools, Google Analytics, for example, one of the biggest amounts of data that you can get for free.
Mm-hmm.
HubSpot, which is another big company that generates data, and other tools that we use internally that we can run reports. We can look at the traffic trends. We can see, are people searching this way? How is it working overall? If it's a seasonality, we actually watch that trend as well, and we
Mm-hmm.
test it and say, okay, this isn't really working over here. Let's switch gears and do this. And so that's really how we have to stay on top of things, is hands-on education.
Yeah.
And really just trying different things.
I think that's just that trying different things is just an important mindset that I think all of us need to just accept that marketing is always, I mean, it's someone said to me once, it's where like art meets or creativity meets data, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And there's like that data component has almost like a science component. You're testing, and sometimes you got to lean in and try, and not everything is going to work, but you tried it.
Right.
And so part of it is it's a little bit of a game. And so acknowledging that some of your marketing spend is not going to work.
Right.
And that's just
And it's
part of the
hard.
strategy.
Yeah. And sometimes that's hard to tell a client, because
Yeah.
especially the ones that are new that come to us and say, I'm frustrated. Everything I've thrown all this money into it, nothing's working. And I get asked this question all the time, and that is, can you guarantee?
Yeah.
Can you guarantee I'm going to be over here? Am I going to be number one? I always want to be number three. I would love to say that, but I can't.
Yep.
I can take my knowledge of somebody who's been doing this for quite a while and say, based on what I know and based on my experience in working with other industries like yourself, I know that this area here can work, but we can't say for certain that you're going to have this guaranteed result. And then over time, it's going to have to change anyway, since it's so fluid. You might invest some money in paid ads for a while, especially if you're just starting out or you're, in the season that you need to get leads quickly, but then you might have to pull back. You might have to change that and then switch over here. The one thing I can always say needs to be happening is the site has to be updated. The site cannot be stale. You cannot have a website that was built 5 years ago and nothing's been done to it since.
Okay.
You have to have, even if you can't do a blog every month, if you have to do a blog every other month, if you're struggling to get content in there, at least make an effort to do something, within 2 months of time, because otherwise, that's where you're going to really definitely not succeed. I can guarantee
Okay.
that. So
Yeah.
that will be the issue.
We got one guarantee on here.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I can guarantee you will not get the traffic or any rankings.
Yes.
If you don't continue to manage this site.
That's fair. One thing I meant to ask, and it goes back to kind of content, and it's related to emails, like email campaigns, and how are we changing content so that the AI within our email inboxes
Right.
is also, helpful. I mean,
Mm.
Gemini lives in my Gmail now,
Yes.
and depending upon what you use, Microsoft, I think, is Copilot. Are we having to change the way we create email campaigns now?
Yes. And actually, email campaigns use AI to
There
help
you
generate
go.
the content. MailChimp, for example, has a really good tool where it will generate not only the content, but images. You can just type in your subject matter or whatever you're trying to address, and they can come up with that information, and that can also help you stay ahead of the game when it comes to the emails and the inboxes, because yes, you're now dealing with the competitiveness of showing up. Are you going to go to spam? Are you going to go to the junk folders, which is always an issue when you had email marketing, but
Yep.
now because you have this AI generated, especially with Gmail, because Gmail can now sort your messages, right? You can do things like social emails go over here, promotions
Yep.
go over there, which you can control, but not everybody's going to spend the time to do that. So yes, you have to kind of think about how you're going to target your messages so you don't fall into the, well, I'm not really doing a promotion, but now I'm sitting in my, in the promotions folder with, all your websites that you shop from.
Right. Thousands and thousands of other websites, that are sending you emails.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you look at that promotions folder and
Yeah.
I don't look at it very often. When I do pop over to it, I'm like,
Yeah.
there are thousands here. It's
And it
crazy.
gets worse as it grows. For example, I have an email that I created maybe 6 months ago, and now I probably have on average 100 promotion emails almost every day that I have to go in there and delete. I mean, you don't have to delete it, but over time it
Yeah.
grow, and so you have to take it out of there or eat up all your space. AI is also good with generating good subject titles with your
Mm.
emails, and that's important because if that's not written well enough, again, you can fall into that trap of going into the wrong area. And Gmail also, just side note, does what's called demand gen, which is a newer version or renamed version of email targeting through Google Ads. So some of those sponsored messages you probably see in Gmail that come up as a sponsored in there, or
Mm-hmm.
pops
Yep.
up, you're like, oh, I don't remember subscribing to that. That's through pay-per-click advertising, which
Oh,
you
that
can
makes
do
sense.
if it's beneficial for your business. So it's kind of scary in a way, but if I am looking at a roofing contractor, for
Yep.
example, I'm trying to get a new roof, I'm searching on Google, I'm asking what the best roofers are in the area, top rated, and then I open my email and all of a sudden I see Orlando Roofing Company, whatever is popping up in my results.
Feels
That
weird.
is a bad.
Yeah, that's when you say, or people say, I think my phone is listening to me. Because it's the
Yes.
things, conversations that we've had are now being, are now popping up. AI is just trying to serve us all the things that we need or think that we need.
I know. That's like when you have your Amazon device. I don't want to say it because there's one here in my office and
Yeah.
she's on to me. You could talk and all of a sudden something pops up on your screen. You go, were you listening to
Yeah.
me? And that is
Yeah.
also AI generated too. Now you can do some advertising through that means as well. So there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah.
And it can be very overwhelming. And I think the best thing for, people in different service industries like this is to kind of look at it from the big picture and determine, how you want to target at this point. Where are
Mhm.
your dollars going to go? What has worked? What is not working? What do you need to do differently? You don't have to do every single component. You have to do the right
Yeah,
one.
pull the triggers that are going to be most effective for you. But part of that of doing that is also it's playing the game and testing it. You don't know what's going to work until you've tried. You know what's not going to work until you've seen it fail. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Sarah, I really appreciate this conversation. It's really interesting just because it's changing the way not only businesses need to think about their marketing, versus what have done traditionally,
Mhm.
but it also as a consumer, it's making me think about now how I am searching for things.
Mhm.
I mean, I have not personally gone on to a ChatGPT or a Claude and searched for something that I need or that I'm looking for. I'm usually going for a work idea or, related to travel per se. But I might play around with it. I'm like really curious to see with a couple of questions what does pop up
Right.
for certain consumer needs.
Yeah. The other thing too, because of this evolution that's happening with AI search, places like ChatGPT not only is a search function, but they're going to start appearing in other areas like browsers. So ChatGPT can also now appear in your Chrome, if you want it right now as an extension.
Okay. Okay.
So, and eventually that could change where, it's just there, it's built in.
Yeah.
Bing Copilot, like you mentioned, that's their newer realm of things. Things that you didn't ask for are now being implemented in there. So you may not even be thinking you're searching AI, but you are.
Yeah.
So, and
That's a good point.
yeah.
That's a really good point. Sarah, if people want to get in contact with you, how do they find you? How do they find Big Shark?
So our website is bigsharkmarketing.com. So all one word. You can do a search if you
Yeah.
want to as well.
There you go.
But yeah, bigsharkmarketing.com, go there. You can call us, fill out a request. We do free consultations. So, if you are kind of unsure of where you want to go or you're unhappy or just want to ask some questions, feel free, reach out to us. We can set up a time. We can meet and discuss your website. We'll take a look at everything and, see what we can do for you.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. I certainly hope to have you on in the future because, as we know, next week there'll be something new that we need to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Molly.
Yep. Until next time.
Thank you. Take care.